Hello everyone, my name is Rhiannon from Blue Dog Board Games, and today we are back for another monthly vlog video where I'm going to go through all the games that I've played solo and a few that I've played multiplayer in the month of July. I cannot believe we're already in August now. I'm filming this on the 1st of August. This year is just absolutely shooting by. As some of you may know if you follow my other videos so far, I'm actually trying to play a game every single day of the year so far. So far I have kept up to it, so we are, well on track to complete our little challenge, or big challenge. And today I'm just going to run through what games I played, my brief thoughts on each game, and sort of have a look at how many hours I've played. So once again, July was a little bit of a quieter month for me. I'm still very much interested in video games as alongside board games, so I have been sort of trying to juggle both of those two hobbies side by side in the evening. So what my evening usually looks like is playing a board game for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours maximum in the evening after we've finished dinner and stuff. And then I will sort of wind down the evening with a video game before I go to bed. And so I guess sort of like the gaming has sort of tailed off a little bit a number of hours just as compared to the beginning of the year maybe, but I'm still like managing to fit in quite a lot of hours. So having a look at the board game stats app, for July I have gamed for 53 hours. That's both solo and multiplayer, all 31 days. That is covering 45 plays and over 13 different games. And some of these are actually new to me games. They are ones that I may have received for my birthday, or there's a recent Kickstarter arrival as well that I will go through. So that is just a very slight drop. There was 54 hours last month and I had 50 plays, so 45 plays this month. So dropping a little bit. I'm hoping to maybe get it up a little bit this month, but we'll see, because the video game interest is still very strong. So without further ado, we're going to get into the very first game on the list. This is the Kickstarter Arrival. I played this for 12 hours 7 times, and I was really upset to get it off the table. Doing what I'm doing at the moment, I do sort of need to ensure that I'm playing as many different games as I can in the month, as well as trying to get a good understanding of my thoughts on them. So that does mean sometimes I have to maybe pack up a game before I actually really want to. I'd actually like to keep it out for a lot longer. But I think from next year, as I don't really plan to do this challenge again, I'm going to try and just take a more relaxed approach to gaming and see where that gets me instead. But the very first game that I have played is The Witcher Old World. Now, I bought this one because I am a huge Witcher fan. I played The Witcher 3 a couple of years after it came out, so I was not an original Witcher 3 player upon release, but wow, what an impact that game had on me. I then went and bought the first Witcher game and the second Witcher game. Absolutely loved them. In fact, I think the first Witcher game is one of my, it's so close to Witcher 3 in terms of how much I love it. I love the story and everything about it. Brilliant franchise. And I went on to read all the books as well. We won't go into the Netflix series, but yeah, I've basically tried to involve myself in the Witcher world as much as I possibly can do. And so when I saw this on Kickstarter, I was so excited. I didn't even look too much into the gameplay because I didn't care what the game was going to be like. I wanted the miniatures. This is the deluxe version. I also have a couple of the expansions as well. So I bought the Legendary Hunt expansion. Sorry, I've only got the one expansion. The box that we've got is a Kickstarter exclusives, all of those bits and pieces. And so I received this game not having much expectation on it. At the end of the day, I thought it was going to be a bit of a cash grab. The miniatures looked really good, but I didn't have much expectation beyond it being a typical IP game with good miniatures and not much substance. I am very pleased to report, however, that this game is fantastic. I am loving it so much. My husband is loving it so much as well. It is just a brilliant mix of world building, fighting, deck building, and exploration and story building, because what you are doing on this game is you play as a Witcher from a Witcher school. It's not necessarily following Geralt of Rivia. Ciri makes an appearance because she's the Lady of Time and Space, but it is not focused on the Witcher as we know it. It's set way before then. You are traveling around the world map, which with many areas that may be familiar to you if you're very into the franchise. You are then resolving like exploration cards, so you may be exploring the city and an event may happen, you may get a quest, you may be exploring a forest and have a little scrapple with a monster. You are then trying to beef yourself up, basically train in your defense, your combat, your magic and your ability to hold potions, your alchemy skill, in order to get yourself more and more powerful to battle these monsters that are on the board. And you have level 1 to 3 monsters, and the way you battle is by building up your deck of cards and putting them all in a combination, trying to match color tabs and activate certain symbols on your cards. These are usually things like attack symbols, or you may like beef up your defense so you can like increase your shield to absorb some attacks coming in, or you may have abilities to help you draw more cards into your hand. The really clever thing about this game as well though is that your deck of cards is also your life pool. So the more you beef yourself up and have a bigger deck and life pool, you are stronger, but you are also therefore going to be struggling to match those combinations and those color combinations in your cards. So it's a very clever balance this game has. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to sort of break down in little parts of the game as to exactly why I think it's so fantastic. I think we will just sort of briefly, I've already mentioned mostly the cards, but how well that card combination is sort of integrated into the game. As you move through the game, you are trying to obtain cards with certain symbols on them, but you're also trying to be very aware of what colors you have in your deck and what color tabs are on each card as well, because you're only able to sort of activate the main ability on the next card in your sort of display as you are playing cards on top of each other if there is a matching tab of the same color. So there's so many different things you're trying to think about, including like the color and the tab color and the symbols on them. Some of them, when you integrate the sort of special cards that come in one of the expansions, I think it may be a Kickstarter edition, like extra cards you pop in the game. Some of these have extra powers as well, so you're also trying to think about that. Burning cards in this game or trashing them from your deck is actually quite challenging. You do get the occasional card that comes up in the display, which is like your market, which allows you to do that, and so you're very keen on like eyeing those up and seeing which ones you may actually want to gain into your hand and which cards you are willing to strip from your deck. Bearing in mind, at the back of your mind, that is actually taking a health point from you as well. There's a location on the board which allows you to do the same, but it is one that you don't tend to actually visit. I found that I don't visit that location very often, so it's a very keen balance in this game of trying to get the cards you want, being very aware of what color cards, what symbols are in your deck, and even what color tabs are in your deck. There's even wild cards in the whole deck which sort of have multiple colors on and can be versatile. Fantastic. The way they've implemented that is just brilliant, and it's so much fun. The battles with the monsters in this game as well is a lot of fun. You are basically just drawing a life pool for them, and they are very simply going to do 1 or 2 attacks, which is either a bite or a charge. And you usually have to like roll a die or flip a coin, or another player chooses what attack it's going to do, and you draw a card, and then it tells you whether it's going to do 5 damage or whether it's going to make you discard 2 cards from your hand or something like that. So the implementation of these fights is very simple, but it actually resolves in quite a fast and rapid way, which is quite useful because I think the battles can slow the game down a little bit, but I've only played it 2-player and solo, so I don't find it to be a problem. And actually the battles are very much an interactive experience. So one person controls the monster deck and they're sort of doing all of the attacks against the Witcher, and the other person is obviously the one sort of making the combinations and trying to attack back. So in a 2-player version, it's just absolutely fantastic how much there is to do at each time. You're always on the go, no matter if it's your turn or the other person's turn. There's so much going on and you are always involved. It's a great experience. In solo, what you're doing is literally just rolling a die, and so that tells you whether the monster's going to bite or charge at that turn, and that's just very easy to obviously apply as well. One of the main things that I absolutely loved about this game is one of the Kickstarter expansions. I believe this one's going to go to retail at some point, and I don't know when it will be. It's called the Monster Trail expansion, which basically means there are nuggets of knowledge around the continent that you are traveling about the weaknesses of various monsters that are hidden in parts of the board. So there may be a monster, for example, in Caverna, but that you know that there is a nugget of information down at the southern end of the isle, because there is a token there which tells you that if you go there, you can find out something about that monster. When you visit that location, you read on the back of a big art card for this particular monster something about that monster. So there's a bit of flavor text which explains to you how, for example, it might be, this monster likes to make attacks from the air, so if you can bring it down to the floor, it's a lot more vulnerable. And that gives you an edge in battle. So you're able to gain that token, and if you are battling that monster at a later date in the game, you can discard the token for a benefit when you're battling. So it may be you're able to search your deck for a particular colour card, or take some of its life points away at the beginning of the battle, or something like that. And I found that an absolutely brilliant way to world build, really get yourself involved in the game and the atmosphere. It was brilliant. I thought it was such a fantastic addition. You really felt like you were learning more about these monsters. You were exploring around the continent, trying to get that information so you are stronger and you are able to battle that monster to the best of your ability, because you know these bits of information about it. And that was absolutely mind-boggling to me. It was absolutely brilliant. I will say that this game did seem a little easy. So a lot of the battles that I have found with the monsters have been successful. And when I mentioned that on another post of mine, somebody said that one of the easiest things to do is just to take out that particular expansion. And I was just like, absolutely not. I'm not taking that expansion out, because that is one of the best parts of the game. If I did find that the monster battles continued to be too easy, there's so many small tweaks you can make to just rectify that. And so that's one of the things in this game. You may find little bits too easy, but there's so many things you can do to just alter that to make your best experience. There's a part of the Wild Hunt expansion which gives shields to particular monsters or the Wild Hunt members. You can implement that so they always absorb 1 damage before you take any from their life pool. You could add extra cards to their life pool. There's so many things you can do. So really, really versatile game, I think. In the base game box, when you are playing solo, it is a sort of beat your own score variant. It's not really to do with the score, it's to do with the number of rounds that you beat, I believe, a number of monsters in. And some people may not like that. I found it a quite satisfying experience. It gave me all of the elements of the game that were in the multiplayer. It removed a little bit of the dice poker, which is really fun, but you can still play dice poker at certain locations, so that doesn't remove it entirely. I thought that was a very solid solo mode, but I can understand why some people don't like it. There is the Wild Hunt expansion as well, which sets you up as like a cooperative experience or a solo experience where you are trying to, as usual, go around fight monsters, but also there are Wild Hunt members on the board, and there are hounds on the board that they are, and all of these members are strengthening the monsters that are around them in surrounding areas, and that is a very fun aspect too. I've only played that one a couple of times, but that really sort of elevated the experience even more. There are separate decks, so there are aspects of the base game that you can't implement when you are playing the Wild Hunt expansion, which is a little bit of a shame, but it does sort of implement its own extras that you can't otherwise play with. So there's events that you sort of read through, and there's various things that are happening on the board which builds its own story. And so I feel like you are basically just getting 2 really good games in one. When you are playing this game as compared to the Wild Hunt expansion, there's just so much content, and I don't really feel like you're missing out on anything by playing one or the other. The aesthetics in this game are just beautiful as well. Some people I've seen had a few like quibbles with the board. My board looks lovely. And it's really good quality. The art is just absolutely beautiful. The cards are really nice thick cardstock. The miniatures as well are absolutely gorgeous. They are better than I could have even imagined, and I'll pop some of the photos up so you can see them in their full glory. I am planning to paint them. I've painted Siri only at the moment, and I'm just not that skilled to try and make their faces in particular pop. So I think I'm going to try and see a few more tutorials before I really sort of try and get any detail onto their faces. At the moment they're just sort of bare bones, but we'll see how we get on with the painting, because that's just another whole aspect that I want to explore in this game, the painting and the playing. I cannot wait to get this one back on the table, even more to explore it, but what a game so far. Also want to just say very briefly about the Legendary Hunt. That is the one expansion that I picked up. I played this one multiplayer, so it can be played solo. I was slightly disappointed that it wasn't a cooperative experience. I would have thought it would be very fun to both try and tackle the legendary monster side by side, but what it actually is a race. So the first person to destroy the legendary monster wins the game. I'm sure though that there are some ways that you can sort of implement that to be a cooperative experience, but that's just another way to play, solo especially. I think that one would probably shine, where it's just another mode altogether. You are going around trying to collect tokens, which are sort of like bonuses against this legendary monster. The legendary monster has its own specific deck when it's attacking. It's got obviously a big life pool, and so their attacks are a lot stronger, a bit more unique than the other monsters that you're going to see. I only played it once so far, but there's a lot of variety in that box as well. So all in all, so much to get through and cannot wait to dive in more. I also believe that somebody has created a fan-made automa mode. I cannot wait to get stuck into that one as well. I believe that somebody has been able to sort of rehash all of the original artwork into it with permission with Go On Board, so, which looks fantastic, and lots of people I have seen really are enjoying that one as well. And if I remember, I'll pop the link to that one down below in the comments, because I want to see that one as well. Let me know if you have played that one so far and what you think of that. But I will shut up about this game now, because I could probably gush on about it for a very long time. So impressed with it, and I am so glad that it is a good game, because I thought it was going to be a cash grab, but it is most certainly not. Brilliant game. The second game on my list is a game that I have very recently put a playthrough up of, so I won't actually go into this one in too much detail, just because you can see my final thoughts on the game at the end of that video, and I will link that one down below. This is a game by Uwe Rosenberg. It is a recent edition of mine, Caverna the Cave Farmers, and I cannot help to compare this one to Agricola, because Agricola was the one I played first. In fact, Agricola Creatures All Great and Small, which was the very first version I played, it's just a 2-player game only, was my favourite game of all time when I was a baby board gamer. So I had a very tiny collection. I knew I was interested in board games, but I didn't have the time or the money to sort of invest in the hobby anymore, so I just kept, you know, my interest very small. That was a brilliant game that I absolutely loved, and then Agricola, the big version, just blew all of those expectations away. I love Agricola, and I've spoken about that one on the channel before, but yeah, Caverna is its sort of next big brother. I'm still undecided about where I stand between Agricola and Caverna, which one I prefer. I think I'm erring towards Agricola, but we will see. I want to play Caverna a little bit more to explore the vast amount of tiles that are in the base game. It's an astounding amount of components in this box. It is stuffed full. In fact, the box is lifting a little bit because there's so much stuff in here. Yeah, it's a really great farming game. Many of the elements that you'll typically see in an Uwe Rosenberg game, where you're farming crops and animals, trying to feed your people. But this one has an added twist that you are trying to excavate and build dwellings and different buildings in the cave system as well. And as well as like deforesting your area and trying to do your normal crop and animal farming. So really great game, really enjoying this one so far, and hope to play this one a lot more. So this next game was a new addition as of last month. This was a birthday present. This one I have played for 8 hours. I've played it 5 times so far. It's actually still on the table at the moment, so I will be playing it more in August. I'm only just scraping the surface of this one, so I won't go too much into it because I'm still formulating my thoughts. But this is Great Western Trail 2nd edition. Sorry about the glare, but there we go. So this is a game where you are cattle herding and cattle farming, trying to get as many points as possible from the cattle you are able to deliver to various cities in America. It is a deck building game where you are trying to buy more and more valuable cattle with different breeding values from the cattle market, as well as popping down buildings that you own around the map that you are traveling, a one-way system pretty much. It does branch off in various areas, which enable you to do different actions. You are also hiring various workers from the market for a lot of money. They cost a lot of money, which may include like builders or cowboys, which will help you to gain more valuable cows in your deck. Will help you pop buildings about on the map, which will enable you to do more actions, as well as maybe hold up other people and make them pay you money for visiting them. Also, you can help to push your train along the track, maybe taking ownership of various stations to get a bonus, or push your train as far along the track as possible, making it essentially cheaper to visit various cities and deliver your cattle. So far, I think I've only played this one 3 times properly. The first game or two were sort of training games where I was actually playing two-handed, just to get a bit of an understanding of how it worked, because there is a lot going on in this game. There's a lot of symbology and a lot of understanding of how to play the game, which I'm definitely not there yet. The solo mode is actually very challenging. I've won once, and that was a bit of a fluke. I feel like I had a very good run in the strategy I was trying to employ. When you were playing against the AI in this game, they're called Sam, you are basically just drawing a card and they are going to do something very simple, which will include a movement, and they usually move one place along the trail, but sometimes they're moving according to how many buildings are out and about. They are then going to do an action which may involves basically everything that you can do. So they may be pushing their train further along the track. They may be gaining extra cattle from the market. They may be, for example, putting buildings out as well. So they are simulating another player very, very well. And they are going to be flying around the board very fast. I feel like this is a very similar game in mechanism to another game called Maracaibo. I played that one a few years ago now, again, and the AI in that one's called Jean. I felt that one was very much a race game. It is a race game essentially, where you are racing against the AI. When I played it multiplayer, it didn't feel as much of a race game, I think because both of us were not actively trying to get towards the end of the game because we wanted to win. We wanted to actually experience the game, so deliberately slowed it down a little bit. You don't have that luxury when you're playing the Maracaibo's AI, and you don't have that luxury when you're playing against Sam, the AI in this box either. They are going at a particular pace, and they are then reaching that last spot, which triggers, basically you are then evaluating how many cows you have, how valuable those cows are, and you are sending them off to be evaluated essentially. So in this game you are just essentially going around in circles. So you are going along your trail, which has various branching pathways, but then you are at the very top corner of the board. You are then sort of ending that sort of section of the game. You are then delivering your cows, hopefully to as far a city away as possible to earn more and more money, and then you are then going to take your person all the way back down to the other corner of the board and start all over again, visiting various buildings. So when you start visiting that top corner area and start delivering your cattle to all these cities, that's when the market starts to like refresh a little bit, and you are taking various workers from these various foresight tiles they are called, and you're popping them in the worker market, which you're able to hire at a later point in the game. And that further pushes you further and further towards the end of the game trigger. So what that means, this is very much a race game. You are racing against Sam. You are trying to juggle whether or not it's worth you getting to the final space now to have your deck evaluated, because you may not have the right cards at that moment in time, or you may want to sort of delay that a little bit, but at the same time they are pushing ahead the whole time and maybe sort of getting the bits that you want, the various station tiles and bonuses. And so it's very much a juggle of trying to sort of find that flow of how fast you can go and how much you can delay. And I'm very much not there yet, as is demonstrated in my very poor win record of this game so far. This is definitely a game that's unlike anything that I actually own in my collection. It's most similar to Maracaibo, but as I said, I only played that one a few times a few years ago, and so this feels very unique and has a very different place in my collection than any other game that I may have. There's a lot of similarities between a lot of games I feel nowadays, but this one very much stands alone. The very act of placing your tiles out on the board I feel is very strategic and is something that I'm sort of learning much more about, as to not only are you trying to think about what tile you want to place, you are restricted by the number of builders you have and how much money you have as to what tile you place. But also, before you begin the game, these tiles are double-sided. And so you are able to then choose which side of the tile you want to play with that game. And not only that, there are lots of different tiles which have lots of different abilities. And then on top of that, again, you have different areas of the board which may be restricted in terms of they may be down a trail which is more treacherous. So if you place them at certain points in the board, there's more likely to be treacherous things that you need to pay money to help you bypass. If you place your tile there, however, you usually get a little extra bonus action. So there's a bit of a toss-up as to, yes, I want to start building my trail over here, my personal trail over here, but I know that I may have to pay more money to go that way in future. Or you may actually work to remove those hazards from the map in future. There's also an aspect in the game where you can earn money from tiles that you place in forested areas. I feel like I'm only scratching the surface as to the wide amount of decisions that you need to make in this game, just solely on the basis of where to place all your buildings. I haven't played this one multiplayer. I'm getting the feeling that at the moment, as a newbie player to this sort of game, I think I would enjoy it more multiplayer on the basis that we can both take our time and not rush towards the end solution, so we can actually maybe gain more and learn more about this game. So at the moment, I feel like the AI is flying around the track as quick as possible and, reaching the end game as soon as they reasonably can. Whereas what I want to do is visit every building on the map. And I know that that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, but they're also tempting, and I don't quite know which ones are more beneficial to me and which ones aren't yet. So I feel like I'm playing too slow, whereas in a multiplayer game I feel like we both would want to play quite slow as to try and achieve more ourselves, and so I feel like that sort of balance would be a little bit more universal. So I definitely feel like this one will benefit from a greater number of plays to sort of get a bigger understanding of how the game works and how strategically it's meant to map out. I'm definitely not there yet, but it's one that I'm very interested in delving into more. I feel like there is a lot of variation in this game. As I said, the tiles are all double-sided. You can choose whatever side of tile you want. You can even mix and match. Like if you wanted half the tiles one side, you can then choose the other half for the other half of your tiles. There's also a small addition to this game where you can have, is it senatorial cows? I'm not sure. There's another sort of deck of cards you can sort of shuffle into the market pile. I haven't played with them yet. I'm hopefully going to play with them this evening. So there is definitely a lot to explore in this game, and I know that this game is very well loved, so I'm excited to play it more and see what I think of it later on. The next game on my list is another birthday edition from last month. I played this one 5 times over 4 hours, so it's actually quite a fast game, which I didn't expect. I expected it to take a lot longer, but actually the solo sessions are quite snappy and they're over before you know it, and so I don't know whether I feel like they're too short. I think maybe they're just about right. And this game is Newton and Great Discoveries. Now, I have not tried the expansions in this game yet. I've only played it a few times. I have barely touched the surface of this game once again, so I will just be quite brief about this one because I feel like I will mention it at a later date when I have more time to sort of dive into this one. It's definitely a unique game with a deep strategy, which I have not yet sort of figured out. In this game, what you are doing is you have a hand of cards with various actions on, and whatever you want to do on your turn, you have to select that card and pop it on your workbench, basically. So that may be various things, like you may be going to the card market and taking one of the cards from the card market into your hands, so you have a greater hand of cards. You may be popping books on your bookshelf to try and sort of trigger certain end of round bonuses in terms of victory points. You may be moving your little scientist around this traveling map as well, trying to sort of tick off various cities and gain knowledge in those certain cities, which will help you in turn gain bonuses from your library display board. Finally, there's also a like workshop research track that you can go up with some of your like scholars and gain bonuses that way. It's a very bonus trigger happy game where you are getting lots and lots of extras and you need to sort of utilize them in the best way possible. The very clever thing about this game though is once you have played your card and that's the action you're doing, the strength of the action is dependent on how many symbols are available in your workshop at the time. But then at the end of the round, once you have played a number of different cards in a certain order, you are selecting one of those cards you have played to place under your player board. So you are adding a symbol of that particular type to your player board, which enhance that particular strength of action in the future, but you're no longer able to select that card from your hand of cards to play. So you need to constantly understand the flow of, I want to strengthen this particular action, but to do that, I need to ensure that I go to the card market to gain another card with that action on. And in order to be able to have a better choice of cards from the card market, I need to go to this area of the board and enhance that action, or travel to this area. And there's so many things you want to think about. You want to do absolutely everything in this game, and I don't feel like you can do everything in this game. You really need to sort of hone in on a few tracks, a few different things, and push your way up as quick as possible and really look for those little niches where they're going to bounce off each other in the best possible way and get those combinations going. Because this very much feels like quite a short game. It's over in about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and so you really need to sort of do it quickly, otherwise you're not going to get there. This is, for a solo game, this is just a beat your own score, so you are just trying to get the best score possible. There's sort of no, from what I can remember, no sort of alterations in gameplay at all as compared to a two-player version. There may be a couple of extra like bonus tiles on the board for a two-player version, but otherwise plays exactly the same. This was a very snappy two-player game as well. I think it took about 50 minutes, maybe 55 minutes, and that was my husband's first time playing it, so a lot of it was just learning the symbols and what the various actions were. This is, again, a game unlike any that I've really played before. So this one in Great Western Trail, I feel like, are games that I could sort of sit down for a month and just play and really learn their niches. I feel like, quite honestly, I think I want to stop buying games now. I feel like I want to just dive deeper and deeper into the ones I have and really get to know them and get to know every sort of strategy to them and bonus that can be triggered. I feel like that's a much more interesting aspect to me now rather than trying to jump on the next big thing. I don't feel like I'm sort of appreciating these games as much as they need to be appreciated, so I will stop talking about Newton now, but I can see already that this is a very unique game, and I'm really enjoying the difficult decisions that this one has in terms of which cards you want to play, but then which cards you want to keep back for your next turn versus which ones you want to use to enhance the strength of your action for the game going forward. Really interesting concept, and again, looking forward to diving into this one more and trying out these little expansions that are in here because I haven't even touched them yet. The next game on my list is actually a game that I had never heard of before until I saw a project on, I think it was BackerKit that it was on, by the same company. I was very interested in their new game, and when I sort of talked to them a little bit over the social media about the solo mode for their upcoming game, they sort of told me that they were taking elements from their first game in their production, and this one is called Keystone North America. Now, I was very lucky to be able to find a copy of this one. It's not easy to find in the UK. They're a Canadian company. I believe you can find the deluxe version of this game, which is absolutely beautiful. But it does have a pretty price tag as well. And I wasn't certain enough how much depth and how much I would enjoy this game to sort of warrant that price tag. I managed to find this one for a very reasonable price, but this one is just the standard game. So Keystone North America is a game with absolutely beautiful artwork on cards that is basically a spatial game where you are drafting cards from a market and placing them in your habitat and trying to earn points from creating various like ecosystems. So on these cards, they have a numerical number, and they also have symbols which dictate sort of what habitat and what type of animal they are. So for example, you may have like an Arctic wolf, and it will have a number 2 on it, and it may have a like a grassland and an ice symbol on it. So that it likes to sort of inhabit those 2 areas of habitat. And in order to score points off that particular Arctic wolf, if you pop him in your display, you need to start making a numerical row or column from other animals that you place next to them. It can only score from cards you place down next to another card when they are in ascending or descending numerical order, but they also need to have at least one of the same symbol of habitat to an adjacent card. So this becomes a very clever spatial puzzle as you move through the game. At first, you just sort of gain the pretty cards, and oh, that one's got a really, high number of habitats on it, so it's going to be really easy to place. Pop it down, and then you start to worry, yes, I have now blocked myself in here. I've only got number 1 cards in the display, but what I really need are number 3 cards to try and make my 3 fit into this column. What really makes this game though is the solo mode. I have only played it solo so far. From what I have seen, the multiplayer game is quite a different experience in terms of it can feel quite competitive and quite mean. But the solo mode in this game is, I'm really quite flabbergasted by how much effort they put into this one. You've got an entire notebook. So you've got a notebook full of 20 different scenarios with a backstory as you're being a newly qualified biologist, and your professor is sort of taking you out for your first few pieces of work, and you're going around your local park trying to gain trails of various animals, and the whole story and the world is being built around you. And then you are given a little scenario. It tells you a few different setup changes, and you then play the game. The game itself doesn't really change from scenario to scenario. There may be some different final objectives that you need to complete or a target score, but the whole world that it builds is just brilliant, and it's just gorgeous to look at. I was very pleasantly surprised with how much there is in this solo mode, because usually it's the other way round. Usually you get such effort put in the multiplayer game, and the solo mode sort of tacked on as a bit of a side thought. But this one I do feel like is opposite. I feel like the multiplayer game would be lacking, maybe. It's still a really fun spatial puzzle if you like that sort of thing, but the little stories that you're reading at the beginning of your scenario and the setup changes and the different targets you have really bring this one to life even more. What makes this one really interesting as well is certain cards have Keystone icons on them. So they're a really key animal to the ecosystem in the Keystone area of America. And so what that means is when you are scoring them in your ecosystem at the end of the game, if you're actually scoring that particular animal, you are scoring that ecosystem twice if it has a Keystone icon in it. So you are constantly trying to gain those animals into your tableau, but they're few and far between. And so it's very difficult to sort of implement them into your scoring. And so it's a very interesting game of ebb and flow, of trying to wait for the right animals, and at some point you just need to go ahead and take the animals that you may not necessarily want and just do the best with what you've got. So hopefully we'll be doing a playthrough of this one at some point in the channel. I don't know when, because I definitely want to play it a lot more, but very pleasantly surprised with this one so far. And I don't usually like spatial puzzles so much, but this one's aesthetics are just so beautiful, and the theme of it is just gorgeous, and the components are lovely as well, so that just elevates the whole experience for me. Lovely, beautiful game. So the final solo game that I want to talk about today is a print and play game. This is based off a video game that I am having an immense amount of fun in right now. That is Stardew Valley. I've never played Stardew Valley before until very recently, and that is the game that I am just obsessed with right now. And the print and play version, it is very much based on Stardew Valley. It's not really claiming to be a Stardew Valley game or anything. This one is called A Simple Life. Now, I've got a laminated sheet here, so I'm sorry if you can't see it too well, but you can probably just about make out that it does very look Stardew Valley-esque. So I have played this one twice this month. It is one that I learned this month as well, so I do want to play it a bit more, but this is just my initial impressions of this game. That's over 1.5 hours, so it is a good 45 minutes of game time. In this game, you are rolling dice and working your way through 10 different days, trying to basically gain as many points as possible, as well as satisfy an objective. So you've got various objectives and goals here, so you can roll the die to sort of determine which goal you go for, or you may just choose randomly. So it may be things like you want to get hearts with all the townsfolk that are on the sheet, or you may want to defeat 5 different monsters, or collect all the artifacts that are around and about, for example. So after now playing Stardew Valley, this one really does have the same sort of elements and feel to the game, and it is a really great implementation in a roll and write version. I absolutely love how they have put in, especially in the pond element, you can go fishing in this game. What you can do is you use one of your die. When you roll them at the beginning of the round, that sort of determines what actions you can do and what areas of the sheet you can go to. So if you roll a high number, you may be able to go to somewhere different in the pond. And then what you're doing is then rolling to see if you manage to catch that particular fish that you are looking to try and catch. And if you miss it, what happens is you can just circle it and then try again at a later date. If you then miss a second time later in the game, that fish disappears forever and you are unable to catch it. I absolutely love that aspect. I think that's really cool. It sort of simulates a little bit in the video game where you may be trying to fish for a particular type of fish in a season, and then, oh, it's the season ends, so you've now got to wait a whole year, in-game year, to try and wait again to try and catch it at a later time. You've also got the mines in this game, and you are trying to upgrade your tools at the same time, so you may be upgrading your sword and your pickaxe, which will allow you to manipulate your die rolls a little bit when you're mining to try and avoid the monsters or roll better against the monsters. Really, really clever system. And I absolutely love as well the ability to gain hearts with your villagers. So you've got 4 different, well, 5, but they're split into 4 categories here. You've got a hobbyist, a historian, you've got two elderly people there in your village, and a student, and you can give them gifts just as in the video game to try and gain benefits. So you will be gaining like gifts that they gift you back once you are friends with them, and the hearts you can use as an end game goal. This one really does sort of encapsulate the feel of Stardew Valley and is a very cozy farming roll and write game, which I've really, really enjoyed. I was actually quite impressed with how this one played. Just looking on Board Game Geek, I believe that they are trying to implement a few changes to this one and grow it even further. It is quite a new one, so I'd be very interested in see where this one goes. But for a first sort of attempt at this sort of game, I think it's a really fabulous one. And if you're at all interested in farming games or Stardew Valley or any sort of video games in that genre, I would really highly recommend this one because it's very simple to learn, but there's quite a lot of familiarity in it and a lot to explore. So I will not talk about any of these games that I have in depth because these are all the ones that I have spoken about on the channel before. I have played Grand Austria Hotel 6 times this month for 6 hours. I think last time I was very new to it. I'd only played it solo a couple of times, but all of these plays, bar one, were solo plays this month or last month. I've really had a good time with that one. I think it's really unique. Just the amount of strategy. Once again, all of the games that it was a birthday present, all the games that I had for my birthday, I feel like there's so much to explore in them. The solo mode that is not in the base game box, you do need to print it out. You can purchase it, I believe, in the expansion for Grand Austria, but I just printed mine. It works very brilliantly, especially now I've clarified a few rules with the designer. They came back to me very quickly about that, which was brilliant. A really, really, really great fun game. I love that. The other one, Earth, I played for 3 hours. I've played that one 3 times this month. I've just released a playthrough of this one, so do check that one out if you're interested in Earth. Paperback Adventures, I played 3 times over 3 hours. I am getting absolutely trashed by the homework monster. He is literally impossible. I don't know how I'm meant to defeat that one. But yeah, the variability in monsters that you are tackling against in Paperback Adventures is amusing and such great fun. It's such a thematic and fun game to play. And the only one that's not been mentioned so far today is Frosthaven. I played that one once this month, so I believe that was the very first of the month. We packed up after that, and it will be coming out again soon, but I just need some more time. I need more time. And then Heat, Pedal to the Metal. I will not go through that one. I have a playthrough of that one solo. I played that one multiplayer this month. Oh, and one I haven't actually got out with me. I played Cartographers once as well, 30 minutes. Absolutely love Cartographers. Every time I get it out on the table, I'm re-inspired to play it more. It's a game that I feel like I could play every day for the rest of the year, and I would enjoy it every single time. It's such a relaxing and therapeutic experience. It's one that you don't need to think too much about, and I think it's the combination of just the right amount of strategy versus just the right amount of luck based on the cards that are being drawn versus just the right amount of roll and writing and being able to sort of draw it on your sheet, and you can make it as pretty or as ugly as you want. You can just use a normal pencil if you want to, and there's no pressure to do otherwise. Oh, I love that game. Brilliant. So we got an honourable mention on the list for the last game that I want to speak about, and I will just be very brief because this is one I played multiplayer. This one is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. Now, Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle is a deck building game where you are buying cards from the market, trying to take down all the villains that you would expect in Harry Potter before they gain control of locations. They gain control of locations by drawing dark arts cards, and they're going to be doing various nasty things to you by like depleting your health or making you discard cards from your hand. Basically being pains in the backsides whilst activating their own abilities, which individually have different things going for them as well. So again, much like the dark arts cards, they may be causing you to lose health, or they may stop you from drawing extra cards on your turn. I am a massive Harry Potter fan. I love Harry Potter and the universe that it creates, and so this is a game that I believe we bought about a year ago to play over the Christmas period, back to back, and it was basically on theme alone. I knew that it was a loved game in the community, but I didn't know too much about it other than that. It is a really fantastic game. It is a lot of fun to play. The turns that you play through are very quick. As a two-player game, I have not played it in more than two, so I cannot really comment on how quickly it plays at more player counts. The overall game, however, can last a little bit longer than I feel like it needs to, especially in the latter games. Each game you are playing through each of the 7 years of Hogwarts, and each one builds on the game a little bit more. So at the end of each successful scenario, you are then drawing the new, opening the new box, and that has a new set of rules that sort of integrate into the game already, and a new set of cards sometimes, or all the time I think, that then shuffle into the decks and are drawn. Ultimately, that means that in the later aspects of the game, and we've just finished, this was 2 plays, we lost our first go at year 7, but then we absolutely trounced the baddies and all the bad wizards and Voldemort in year 7 for the second time play. What it means basically, as you're building up the game so much, and by the end of year 7, the game that we played was about an hour and a half long, because you are basically shuffling all of the bad people together and you are trying to defeat all of them before finally tackling Voldemort at the end. So it can overstay its welcome a little bit, which I believe may sort of put some people off, especially if they wanted to play it with like families. But as a game that I'm very interested from the theme, as well as the sort of mechanics behind it as well, that didn't bother me too much. This game definitely isn't perfect. However, we have house ruled a couple of things, because if you have a certain run of bad luck at the beginning of the game, it can be a very slow and painful game, because you know that you're definitely not going to win, but it takes a long time necessarily to get to that finale and that finish where you lose. So for example, the market cards, you just basically shuffle them all together and draw them. Sometimes they are quite valuable cards. So for example, if you have only 6s and 7s that all come out at the beginning of the game, you're not able to generate enough money to buy those cards essentially, which will mean that you're just stuck in a continuous loop until you die. So what we have done, we have made a couple of homebrew rules that we have actually seen various people talk about online, just to sort of alleviate those like minor quibbles that we have. So we split the market deck into two, some cheaper cards, more expensive cards, and have 2 rows of them. We've implemented a rule that we can spend a coin or 2 to sort of discard cards from the market to get the decks going a little bit more. Also, some of the baddies that come out, you're supposed to shuffle them all together as well, and they just come out in any which order. I find that some of the latter game characters can be very powerful, and so if you are drawing them in the first round or 2 of the game, it can make it for a very tough start. And so we have split them, I believe, in half again, where games 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 we've shuffled all together, and then the latter games we shuffle in the bottom half of that deck. There are lots of different ways though that people have played this game. You can just play it out of the box and it's not really any problem. We have just found that sometimes the game can be a little hard to begin with, and you can then go down like a bit of an endless spiral where you are just waiting for the end of the game and that loss to come. And we would just rather sort of end that experience earlier if we know that it's going badly. We would rather end it there and try again rather than just continuously get beaten down for an hour and a half. Haven't got time for that, you know. That is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. We've now finished game 7, so what we're going to do is I think we'll put it away for a little bit, reset it, and then at a later date play it through again, because it was a lot of fun. Really did enjoy this experience, and if you're a Harry Potter fan, then this is an absolutely brilliant one to add to your collection. So that is it with me going through all of the games that I played solo and multiplayer in the month of July. Do let me know in the comments down below what games you've been enjoying solo in this month, and I'll be sure to check them out. I may not buy them because I don't want to buy any more games now, but I will definitely be interested to have a look into those. Do also let me know if you have been playing any of the games recently that I have mentioned and your thoughts on those games. I'd be interested to know. It's always good to have other people's opinions on the game, especially from a solo perspective. If you did enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to the channel and you will be let know of any future releases that I do. Otherwise, I will be back very soon with a new playthrough or a monthly vlog video. So thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye bye.